All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the massive, high-stakes race to build our driverless future. We're talking billions of dollars on the line, and it's a battle being fought by three huge but very different contenders: Waymo, Zoox, and Tesla.
Now, you might think this is science fiction, right? Something way off in the future. But nope. That quote you're seeing, that's from someone who just took a ride in a real-life Zoox Robotaxi. The future is literally already on our streets. It's just, well, it's showing up in a few different shapes and sizes.
Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll get to know the three big players. Then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the tech, how these cars actually see and what they look like. From there, we'll talk business models, the human side of things, which is huge, and wrap it all up by asking the million-dollar question: who's actually going to win this thing? All right, let's meet the contenders. First up, you've got Waymo, which you can already hail in places like Phoenix and San Francisco. Then there's Zoox, backed by Amazon, by the way, cruising around Las Vegas. And of course, you have Tesla, who's running a pilot program down in Austin. So three companies, but as you're about to find out, three totally different playbooks. Now, this is where things get really interesting. The single biggest difference between these companies, it all boils down to one simple question: how does the car see the world? And the answer to that question, well, it opens up a huge can of worms about their entire philosophy on tech and safety. Okay, so let's start with Waymo. Their whole philosophy is more is more. It's all about redundancy. They've packed their cars with a whole suite of sensors. We're talking cameras, radar, and this thing called LiDAR, which is super cool. It uses lasers to paint a super accurate 3D map of everything. So they get all these overlapping views of the world. The thinking is pretty simple, right? If one sensor gets blinded by rain or just fails, there are plenty of others to pick up the slack. It gives them this incredibly detailed picture of what's happening up to 500 meters away. Zoox is kind of on the same page. They love their sensors too. But here's the kicker. Their vehicle was designed from day one, from the ground up, to be a robotaxi. That's a huge deal. It means they could strategically place all those sensors at the four corners of the car. This gives it this unique, almost bird's-eye view, letting it peek around obstacles in a way that a normal car, one that's just been, retrofitted, just can't do.
And then there's Tesla. Man, they just threw the whole playbook out the window. They took a completely different path, and honestly, a pretty controversial one. They got rid of LiDAR, they got rid of radar, everything. They're betting the entire farm on a system they called Tesla Vision. And what is that? It's just cameras, 8 of them. The idea is that it works just like a human driver's eyes.
And this quote from Elon Musk, it just perfectly sums up their entire thinking. His whole argument is, hey, humans drive with 2 eyes, right? So a really, really smart AI should be able to do it even better with 8 cameras. It's a massive bet. They're basically saying that super intelligent software is more important than having a bunch of fancy hardware. So, okay, that's the theory. But how does this all stack up in the real world? I mean, that's what really matters, right? Well, the early data is telling. It shows a pretty big difference. Waymo's more is more sensor approach, it's resulted in 91% fewer crashes with severe injuries compared to us humans. And Tesla's camera-only system, their pilot in Austin had 3 crashes in just the first 7,000 miles. So you can see the contrast. Okay, next up, let's talk about the cars themselves. When you picture a robotaxi, what do you see? A normal SUV that just happens to drive itself? Or are you picturing something that looks like it rolled right off a sci-fi movie set? Because that choice, how the car is designed, has massive implications for everything from cost to how it feels to ride in one. And really, it breaks down into 2 main camps. On one side, you have the retrofit approach. That's Waymo and Tesla. They take existing cars, like a Jaguar I-Pace or a Model Y, and just pack it full of their self-driving tech. But on the other side, you have the purpose-built vehicle. That's Zoox. They started with a blank sheet of paper and designed a car specifically to be a robotaxi. We're talking no steering wheel, no pedals, the whole shebang. So what's the trade-off? Well, it's pretty straightforward. If you retrofit a car, it's way faster and cheaper. You're just using a car that's already rolling off the assembly line. But if you build it from scratch, like Zoox did, you can create a totally new kind of experience for the passenger. It's less like a car and more like a private lounge on wheels. All right, so you've got this incredible tech. But how do you actually make money with it? How do you turn this into a real, profitable business? Well, as you might have guessed, their plans for scaling up are just as different as their approaches to sensors. You can really see 3 totally different business models emerging here. Waymo and Zoox are going the traditional route. Think of it like a taxi company. They own the cars, they maintain the cars, they run the whole show. But Tesla, they're trying something completely different, a sort of hybrid model. They'll have some of their own cars, sure, but they also want to create a network where you, a Tesla owner, could rent your personal car out as a robotaxi when you're not using it.
And guess what? These different business models lead to some wildly different prices for you, the rider. A study found that the average Waymo ride is over $20. That's even more than an Uber or Lyft. Zoox, for now, has just been giving out free rides to get people interested. And Tesla? Oh boy. Their pilot program in Austin charged a flat rate of just $4.20. It's almost a joke price, but it's sending a very clear message about where they want to go. Super, super low cost.
Okay, so we've talked tech, we've talked business, but you can build the most amazing, most advanced robot on Earth, and if people are too scared to get in it, it's worthless. This is the human element. We're talking trust, comfort, and just how people feel about it. And honestly, this might be the biggest mountain they have to climb.
And look, the numbers don't lie. This is a huge challenge. Get this. Recent surveys show that a whopping 70% of Americans say, right now, they would not get in a robotaxi. 70%. That is a massive number. So overcoming that really deep-seated fear, that has to be job number one for every single one of these companies. But here is the crazy part. Despite all that fear out there, the people who actually take the plunge and try one, they almost always love it. It's a total flip. People describe the Waymo ride as just relaxing. They say the Zoox cabin feels super spacious, almost social. And with Tesla, riders love that they can control everything from their phone. The common theme here? A surprising sense of calm and being in control. But there's a weird, unexpected hurdle that's popped up. Think about it. When you're not driving anymore, you're just a passenger. And for a lot of people, what does being a passenger mean? Yep, motion sickness. It turns out this is a much bigger deal than anyone thought. Researchers are actually working on things like seats that vibrate a little to give you a heads up before a turn or stop, just to combat it. So we've looked at the tech, the design, the money, which brings us to the final huge question. Who is actually going to win this thing? Well, there are a few different ways this whole race could finish. Honestly, it all comes down to which big bet pays off. Scenario 1. The cost of all that fancy hardware, like LiDAR, just drops through the floor. If that happens, Waymo and Zoox, with their safety-first approach, could be impossible to beat. Scenario 2. Tesla pulls it off. They prove that their camera-only system is just as safe. If they do that, their cheap, easy-to-scale model could just take over the world. But the most realistic answer? Probably a mix of all of them. A market where you have different options for different trips. But, at the end of the day, it's not really about the number of sensors or whether the car looks like a toaster. That's not what's going to decide the winner. The real winner will be the company that earns our trust, the one that can convince millions and millions of us that letting go of the steering wheel is not just easier, but that it's actually safer. And that leaves us with the one question that matters most. Just forget all the tech for a second. Picture this. A car pulls up to your curb, and there's nobody inside. The question is, do you get in? Because your answer to that question, and millions of others like you, that's what will truly decide who wins the robotaxi race.